examples of how the disorganized attachment relationship style in your adult relationships. So I wanted to go through each one of these and talk about how they could really influence and affect and actually alter or even uh, break up a relationship. The first one is that people with a disorganized attachment relationship style tend to focus on the needs of others or their partner at the expense of their own wants and needs. They tend to look at what can I do to help my partner do better. Now that grows out of how that developed in infancy. The research shows that if a parent shows some weakness or some inability to meet the child's needs, the child would leap into the breach and do something to help the parent do a better job of meeting uh, their own needs and also their child's needs. And so the child begins to focus on the needs of the partner in order to, it maybe also is a way of kind of protecting themselves, because sometimes if the the partner, or in the case of an infant, the mother is either depressed or overworked or overwhelmed or has an addiction, uh, they pick it up very quickly and they try to do something to make the situation better. That's where it starts, and then they begin to continue to do that as a relationship style into their early years as they become um, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They still continue to do that, and it becomes a way of doing relationship, and that can really lead to resentment after a while. If you focus so much on the needs of the other and you don't get your needs met, it can lead to some kind of resentment after a while. That, gee, I'm giving so much to this relationship and I'm not getting a lot back. And that I hear that tale very often in relationships. So the second one is related to this. You accommodate to the needs of the others at your own expense. And the classic uh, relationship style of a disorganized attachment nature is one of accommodating to the needs of others, and that is can also lead to some resentment that somehow, in accommodating to their needs, you don't get back what you think you deserve in return, and you start to feel resentful. So there is also some approach avoidance in the disorganized attachment, as well as it shows up in the anxious ambivalent type. But the approach avoidance here is that you want to be close to other people, but when you start to get close, you get kind of afraid of them, and afraid that somehow you're more vulnerable, you're more likely to get hurt, and so you begin to start to put up some barriers to intimacy. You put up some ways to protect yourself in relationships, in close relationships, that may end up not really helping the relationship grow very much. So then the fourth one is that the person with a disorganized attachment relationship style tends to normalize things that are not normal in their relationships, and that can get them in trouble. The red flags that show up in relationships, you know, they kind of dismiss them. Oh, he was just having a bad day, or typically enablers in relationships where there's an alcoholic tend to do this a lot. They normalize the alcoholic's behavior and don't really see the impact of it. So it's really an important way to understand that by normalizing things that are not normal, you are really helping kind of create an illusion of the relationship being working when it's not really working very well. Uh, Not feeling that you deserve to get your needs met is another thing that the disorganized attachment style seems to lead to. People tend to then think about themselves as, well, you know, I'm I'm not really that important to have these needs met. The other person's more important. And actually, some of this grows out of some religious trainings. There's a lot of people who grew up in with very religious families where taking care of your own needs and making sure that you deserve to get your needs met is like being selfish. And so it's not seen as something really essential. In fact, it's got uh, bad press in some religious communities. And in fact, I know one community where their sole goal is to eliminate the self and to replace the self with groupthink. And that's what I define as a cult. So the next one is the willingness to tolerate neglect in your relationship, because strangely enough, neglect has more of long-lasting impact on our behavior than does abuse. And so, if we were neglected in any way as a child, and we made some decisions about that and had some beliefs about that, maybe it's one that, well, I wasn't neglected because I didn't deserve to get that anyway. So there's really a, a lack of understanding of how neglect and growing up is affecting your current adult relationships, your own feeling of being neglected. And remember, anything that you didn't get finished growing up, any learning experience that was left unfinished, will continue to show up in your life. And when I work with couples, usually it has shown up already, and they've had a number of times where they've had conflict over this issue or that issue. And I usually found that two things are true. First of all, whatever they're upset about is not the real reason they're upset. It's really a bleed through from some kind of earlier belief related to possibly an insecure attachment. So they will tend to in their relationships will tend to act out and or regress. So that's number seven, is that people with a disorganized attachment uh, often are heavy into drama and in their relationships, and they basically their beginning relationships were not calm and peaceful. There was some drama at the very beginning, maybe as early as infancy. It may be a drama about getting sick, or mother getting sick, or mother having an accident, or mother not being able to take care of you because of addiction or whatever it might be. But there's drama attached, and also people, when they are triggered, they regress. So in relationships, what I found was that the closer the relationship becomes, the more likely that these dramas and these regressions will show up. And it's kind of like the good news, bad news. Uh, and the reason is that it's usually not feeling, people don't feel safe enough to allow these feelings to show up. And so they have guarded against making these happen, and making these show up, having these show up in their relationships. So they really are uh, lacking in understanding of why they do what they do in this case. Number eight, most people with a disorganized attachment style uh, have poor conflict resolution uh, uh, skills. They just don't have the ways. That's the second thing I found in working with many couples is, first, they don't understand what they're really upset about, and second of all, they don't have any skills to resolve it if they did know. So those are the two things I work with most of my clients. And the book has a lot. It's a whole chapter on conflict resolution skills, and gives the information and also the tools they need. People need to have better conflict resolution skills. One of my specialty areas. And people with a disorganized attachment tend to avoid conflict at all costs. They tend to again have that shaky kind of bonding and attachment, and so they don't want to have any conflict that could threaten that. And so any conflicts that come up, they tend to try to avoid them actually happening in the first place, and they go way out of their way to prevent the conflict from happening. And then number 10 on the list is that uh, people, instead of asking directly for what they want because of this disorganized attachment, they use indirect means to get their needs met. They may try to manipulate others, number 11, into feeling sorry for them, so that they're like a victim and that they need someone to reach out and take care of them in some way. And that is a very common way that people handle this lack of directness in terms of their needs and wants. They manipulate others by not asking, but hinting or making it uh, clear that they need some help, but they never ask for it. And number 12 is they engage in people pleasing behaviors, which are frequently when people have a disorganized attachment relationship style. I have another inventory on defining whether you're a people pleaser or not. Almost everybody that has the disorganized attachment style also has score high on that one. They score high on the people pleaser inventory. And then finally, a lot of people have used this term of the imposter syndrome, that they feel like they're living a life of a lie, or they're not being truthful, and this is the false self that I talk about a lot. It's similar to the feeling of the imposter syndrome that people come up with, and so uh, these are kind of the more common ways that the disorganized attachment style will affect your adult relationships. And so the first step, of course, is understanding whether you have this insecure attachment style. And so Ben, you can put up the inventory on how to change your. That's I don't think that's the one I'm looking for here. I'm looking for one that says disorganized attachment. Oh yes, it does say that. Okay, this is the one. It has this stuff at the top, which shouldn't be there. But the inventory itself, you can download this whole thing and fill it out, score it, and see how much of your behavior in relationships might be related to a disorganized attachment, insecure attachment style. And then I'll talk more in my other, and certainly in the book, there's a lot about how to deal with that, how to change that if that's an issue for you. How do you get to re-regulate your relationship in a more equal way rather than using the strategies you developed as a child, having developed an insecure or